Welcome to the deep dive. For too long, we've kind of obsessed over the external signs of success, haven't we?
Absolutely. The big portfolio, the fancy title, the things everyone can see.
Exactly. But this deep dive, we're pushing all that aside for a bit. We're going inward. We're exploring this idea that every single victory you achieve out there, in the world, it actually starts somewhere else entirely.
It starts inside your own head. An internal victory first.
That's it, the foundation.
It really is. Think of it like upgrading your own internal operating system. We've looked at some incredible source material for this, and the argument is pretty compelling.
Which is?
That mental training. It isn't some soft skill, some nice to have. It's potentially the single most critical factor for high performance that lasts.
More important than practice or physical training.
Just as essential. That's the point. It must be treated like physical conditioning or mastering your technical skills. The whole idea is to take your current mental habits, which, let's be honest, are often reactive, maybe even self-sabotaging.
We've all been there.
Right. And transform them into a mindset that's structured, powerful, and, well, ultimately designed for winning.
Okay, so for you listening, our mission here is to give you a clear roadmap. We want to go beyond just, the usual pep talks.
Get into the nuts and bolts.
Exactly. The mechanics of how these invisible thought patterns are actually running the show, controlling your behavior. What are the real practical steps you need to take for genuine self-mastery?
And we've broken it down. We've synthesized the insights from the sources into 4 main phases of mental development.
Think of it as the complete user manual for that high-performance brain you've got. So let's dive in and unpack this.
Okay, first things first. Where does the fight actually happen?
Right, and the sources are, they don't pull any punches on this.
No, they don't.
The biggest battles you'll ever fight, they're happening right inside your own thoughts, your mind. That's the main battlefield, period.
It's non-negotiable. That's where leverage is.
So let's define the opposition then. Who, or maybe what, are these mental enemies trying to trip us up?
Well, the umbrella term is self-sabotage, really, but it tends to show up in 3 main ways. First, we absolutely have to talk about negative beliefs.
Okay, what are those exactly? Not just bad moods.
No, much deeper. These are like entrenched narratives, stories we tell ourselves about what we're capable of or what we deserve or where our limits are. Stories
we might not even realize we're telling.
Precisely. And often they stem from maybe one bad experience years ago or some assumption we picked up as a kid. I'm just not good at math, or I'm not a leader type.
And I think people really underestimate how much power those beliefs have. It's not just about feeling bad, is it?
Not at all. It acts like a switch, a literal automatic shutoff valve for effort. If you truly deep down believe I'm terrible at public speaking,
you won't practice properly. You'll look for signs you're failing during the talk.
And bingo, you guarantee the belief comes true. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy because there's this part of your brain, the reticular activating system, or RAS.
What now?
The RAS. It's like a filter for reality. And it starts filtering everything to confirm that belief. It literally highlights evidence that supports the negative story.
Wow. Okay, so negative beliefs is enemy number 1. What's next?
Enemy number 2, fear. And we're not just talking about, fear of spiders or heights.
So those are real.
They are, but this is more pervasive. It's the fear of looking stupid, fear of rejection, fear of failing in your career, even sometimes a weird fear of actually succeeding.
Fear of success. That sounds counterintuitive.
It does, but think about it. Success brings change, expectations, visibility. That can be scary. But mostly, fear just paralyzes you, stops you from even starting, keeps you stuck on the sidelines.
Okay. Makes sense. And the third enemy, you said there were 3.
The third one. And I agree with you, this one feels the most kind of insidious. It's doubt.
Ah, yes. The whisper.
That's a perfect way to put it. Fear might shout, don't start. Doubt whispers, okay, you started, but you're probably doing it wrong, and it won't work anyway. Why bother?
It's that constant second guessing.
Constant. It questions everything. Your preparation, your talent, if you even have any, your competence, whether the whole plan makes any sense. Doubt just burns through your mental energy nonstop.
And that's often the difference, isn't it, between someone who just gets on with it and someone who's always procrastinating because they need more information or more certainty.
Exactly. That quest for certainty is often just doubt in disguise.
Okay, so we've got these 3 main saboteurs: negative beliefs, fear, and doubt. Recognizing them is the first step, obviously. But what's the immediate game plan then? What's the strategy for dealing with this internal noise?
It's really a 2-part strategy based on the sources. First, recognition. You have to train yourself to catch these thoughts as they happen, like internal vigilance.
Spot them in the act.
Spot them, and crucially, label them for what they are. Programming errors, learned responses, not objective facts about reality.
Okay. And the second part?
Systematic replacement. Once you catch a destructive thought, "I'll never finish this project," you don't just ignore it, you actively, consciously replace it with an empowering, rational one.
Like what?
Maybe, "This project is challenging and I will tackle it one step at a time, focusing on the next action." It's not about just thinking happy thoughts. It's strategic. It's rational optimism.
So the ultimate goal is to turn the mind from this self-sabotaging battlefield
that's constantly draining your energy
into your biggest asset, your strongest weapon.
Your most reliable strategic partner. But it requires that constant, active internal monitoring, especially at first.
But isn't that just exhausting? Always being on guard inside your own head, doesn't that add a whole new layer of stress?
That's a really common concern. And yes, initially, it does require conscious effort. It feels like work. Think about learning to drive stick shift, right?
Oh yeah. Clutch, gas, stall, repeat. Very conscious effort.
Exhausting. Every single step needs your full attention. But what happens over time?
It becomes automatic. You don't even think about it.
Exactly. It becomes a subconscious habit. Mental vigilance is the same journey. The source material is clear on this. That initial effort, that cognitive load of constantly self-monitoring, it fades.
And gets replaced by?
It gets replaced by the habit of strategic, empowering thinking. You're not fighting random negative thoughts anymore. You're running a new, more efficient program automatically. Self-mastery becomes the default, not the effort. Hashtag tag 1.2, breaking through invisible walls.
Okay, that idea of ingrained automatic thinking that flows really nicely into the next concept from the sources, these invisible walls.
Ah, yes, chapter 2. It's a great metaphor.
It really is. Limiting beliefs basically build these invisible barriers in our minds. They feel incredibly real, solid even, but they're just mental constructs.
Often built years ago based on outdated information.
And the kicker is we rarely ever check if they're still valid. We just accept them.
And if you don't audit them, they become your perceived reality. You bump up against what feels like a ceiling.
And you stop trying. You think, well, that's just how high it can go.
And really, it might just be, old paint on the wall that you never actually pushed against to see if it would give way.
So how do we start pushing? How do we break through these mental barriers? The sources lay out some steps, right?
Yes, 3 necessary steps. And they often feel uncomfortable, which is kind of the point. They require active effort.
Okay, let's break them down. Step 1.
Step 1 is challenging assumptions. This is like taking a wrecking ball to the wall's foundation.
How does that work in practice?
When a limiting belief pops up, let's say, "I'm just not creative enough to come up with new ideas," you have to stop and interrogate it, like a lawyer cross-examining a witness.
Put it on trial.
Exactly. Ask tough questions. What specific, concrete evidence supports this? Is it based on one comment someone made 10 years ago? Are there times I was creative that contradict this story? Demand proof. Hard proof.
Across all situations, not just cherry-picking the failures.
Precisely. If the evidence is flimsy or contradictory, the assumption starts to wobble. The wall's foundation cracks.
Right. So that's the intellectual demolition part. Demanding evidence. What's step 2? You mentioned an identity shift?
Step 2 is huge. Reframing failure. This is about fundamentally changing what failure means to you.
Because normally we take it so personally, right? I failed, therefore I am a failure.
That's the default, yeah. It feels like a verdict on our worth. The winning mindset, though, it reframes failure completely. It's not about you. It's essential, neutral data.
Data. Like in a science experiment.
Exactly like that. Failure is just information telling you that that specific approach didn't produce the desired result under those specific conditions. That's it.
Takes the sting out of it.
It does. When you successfully reframe, you shift instantly from that emotional spiral shame wanting to hide to a much more productive analytical mode. Okay, that didn't work. What did I learn? What do I adjust for the next attempt?
Learning speed goes way up. Emotional drain goes way down.
Yeah.
And the third step, this involves discomfort.
Yes. Step 3 requires pushing intentionally beyond one's comfort zone. Because those invisible walls, they're basically the exact boundaries of your current comfort zone.
Where you feel safe and competent.
Right. And if you only ever operate inside that zone, the wall just gets thicker and stronger. Every time you avoid a challenge because it feels scary or uncertain, you're reinforcing the belief that created the wall in the first place.
So you have to actively lean into the discomfort.
Intentionally. The sources emphasize exposing yourself to manageable stress, not jumping off a cliff, but taking calculated steps outside the familiar. If your wall is, say, fear of speaking up in meetings,
You have to deliberately speak up, even if it's just a small point at first.
exactly. Or if it's fear of rejection, maybe you deliberately pitch an idea you know might get shot down. Not trying to fail, but trying to prove to your subconscious that rejection happens, and guess what? You survive. It doesn't define you.
And I like that the source material ties this to real people, high achievers. It's not just theory.
No, the examples are key. Athletes breaking through performance plateaus they thought were physical limits, entrepreneurs launching things everyone said were impossible.
What do they have in common?
They all consciously identified their internal I can't or I'm not and actively worked to turn it into a, well, what if I could, or how could I? They systematically dismantled their own limiting beliefs.
So the message for us, for the listener, is really clear then.
It's actionable. It's not about just sitting and thinking nice thoughts. It's about actively seeking out controlled discomfort, taking calculated risks, getting objective feedback, and proving those old limiting stories wrong through experience.
Because if you stay within the same old boundaries,
You get the same old results.
Yeah.
Guaranteed. To change the outcome, you absolutely have to push the boundary. Hashtag tag 1.3 tools for reprogramming your inner voice.
Okay, that shift from just thinking about it to actively doing something, that leads us right into the mechanics. Chapter 3 gets into the tools for reprogramming, right?
Exactly. If that inner voice, that internal dialogue really does shape our destiny,
Which the sources argue strongly it does.
then we have to make sure that voice is working for us, not against us. It needs to be constructive, encouraging, confident, not that nagging, destructive inner critic we all know.
The inner critic. Mine's quite loud sometimes.
Mine too. It's often highly skilled, isn't it? It uses very specific language, tends to be absolute, like always or never, very personal, you are, and feels permanent, you'll never change.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. So how do we build a counter voice? What are the tools?
It's like strategic linguistic retraining. Seriously. The sources highlight 3 main techniques that work together to rebuild your self-image, basically from the inside out.
Okay, let's get specific. Tool number 1, I think I know this one, affirmations.
Affirmations, yes. Now, we've all heard about them, and sometimes they can feel a bit, well, cheesy, or like wishful thinking.
I am abundant. Well, my bank account is empty.
Yeah.
Okay. How do the sources make them effective?
The key difference lies in how you phrase them, connecting to neurolinguistics. It's about using the present tense. An empty wish is future-oriented. I hope I'll be confident one day.
Right. Doesn't feel real now.
An effective affirmation needs to be positive, present tense, specific, and ideally sensory. So instead of, I hope I do well in the presentation, it's, I am delivering this presentation with clear, confident authority right now. I feel calm and focused.
Okay. Present tense. I am, not I will be. Why does that matter so much?
It goes back to that RAS filter in your brain. When you state something as already true in the present tense, you're basically giving the RAS new instructions. This is my reality now. Start looking for evidence of this.
So it stops automatically scanning for proof of failure.
And starts actively scanning for opportunities, resources, and confirming signals that match your new, positive, affirmed reality. You literally start noticing things that were invisible to you before.
So it's not magic, it's just directing your brain's attention filter.
Precisely. You're giving your subconscious a better script to run. Okay, second technique. Reframing.
Which we touched on with failure, but it's broader than that.
Much broader. It's about instant perspective shifting. Taking an event or a thought that triggers a negative feeling and changing its meaning on the spot.
Can you give another example? Like a common work scenario?
Sure. Let's say you pitch a new idea in a meeting and your boss immediately points out 3 major flaws. Very direct criticism.
Okay. Ouch. The automatic thought might be,
Wow, I'm an idiot. That was a terrible idea. I should just keep my mouth shut next time. That's personalization. It's about me.
right. So how does reframing intervene?
Reframing immediately shifts the focus off you and onto the information. The
Yeah.
reframe might be, okay, the feedback is about the structure of the idea, not my intelligence. This criticism is valuable. Data points out weaknesses I missed. Now I can make the idea much stronger for the next iteration.
You separate the event from your identity.
Completely. It transforms what feels like a personal attack or a catastrophe into just a productive analytical moment. You minimize the emotional downtime, maximize the learning instantly.
Okay, that's powerful. Affirmations, reframing.
Right.
What's the third tool that sounded more intense? Cognitive restructuring.
Yeah, this one goes deepest. Cognitive restructuring is about identifying and then actively dismantling specific irrational thought patterns. Psychologists call them cognitive distortions.
Distortions, like looking in a funhouse mirror.
Kinda, yeah. They warp reality. The sources mention several, but two really common ones are catastrophizing.
Assuming the absolute worst will happen from a tiny setback.
Exactly. Like you make one typo in an email and think, I'm going to get fired. And the other big one is all or nothing thinking, black and white thinking.
If it's not perfect, it's a total disaster.
Right. No middle ground. So the restructuring process is systematic. First, you catch the distorted thought. You identify which distortion it is. Ah, that's catastrophizing.
Awareness first, then.
Then you challenge it. You gather evidence against the distorted thought. Use those lawyer skills again. Okay, I made a typo. What's the actual probability I'll get fired for that? 0.1%.
You bring logic back into the picture.
Forcefully. And third, you consciously formulate a more balanced, rational, and realistic response. Maybe rate the probability of the catastrophe versus other, less dramatic outcomes.
So, going back to the all or nothing example, if I miss one workout, the distorted thought is, my fitness plan is ruined, I might as well give up. How does restructuring help there?
You'd intervene by asking, okay, is the entire plan ruined because of one missed workout? Or is 95% of my progress still intact? What's the realistic impact of this one event? What's the next small step to get back on track tomorrow?
It pulls you out of that emotional reactive spiral.
And pushes you back into your logical brain, the prefrontal cortex. It replaces that automatic negative loop with a deliberate, reasoned, intellectually honest assessment. And that, according to the sources, is the real core of self-mastery. You're not just having thoughts, you're actively designing them.
Okay, so we've done the diagnostic, we've started reprogramming the internal software. Now we move into optimizing for output, right? Getting the best performance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Section 2 is all about peak performance. And Chapter 4 dives straight into focus and concentration.
Because, as the sources say, winning requires intense focus. You can't achieve much if your attention is scattered everywhere.
Absolutely. And they connect this mental training directly to, well, the science of the brain, how focus actually works.
Which brings us to that almost mythical state, the flow state.
Ah, yes. The holy grail of performance, flow, as pioneered by Csikszentmihalyi's research. It's that specific mental zone, right? Sometimes called being in the zone.
Or everything just clicks.
Yeah. It happens when the challenge of the task perfectly matches your skill level. You get completely absorbed. You lose your sense of self-consciousness. Time just disappears.
An hour feels like 5 minutes.
Right. And execution feels almost effortless. Why? Because that internal critic, the doubt, all that mental noise we talked about, it's just gone, silent.
And that's where people do their best work, isn't it? Whether it's coding, writing, surgery, sports.
That's peak human performance, yes. But the key insight here is that flow isn't just some random lucky accident that happens sometimes.
We can actually train for it. Train our minds to achieve that kind of laser-like attention more often.
That's the argument. It's entirely trainable because what you're training is the underlying mechanism of attention itself. The sources stress 3 main practical components for this training.
Okay, let's hear them. Component 1.
Specific daily focus exercises. Think of these like lifting weights, but for your attention muscles.
Mental reps.
Exactly. It involved deliberately practicing sustained focus, pushing back against our modern environment, which trains us for the opposite continuous partial attention.
Okay, give us an example. Something simple someone listening could start doing tomorrow morning.
The simplest might be something like focused observation, or sometimes it's called one-point concentration. Take just 5 minutes. Pick a single, simple, non-digital object. Could be the flame of a candle, a spot on the wall, the physical sensation of your breath, even just the taste of your coffee. And for those 5 minutes, your only job is to keep your attention on that object.
But my mind will wander. It always does.
Of course it will. That's part of the exercise. The key is when you notice it has wandered gently, without judgment, you just bring it back. Bring it back to the flame, the spot, the breath.
So the rep isn't just the focusing, it's the returning of the focus.
That's the muscle you're building, the ability to redirect and sustain attention. Okay, but doing that exercise runs straight into the second component.
Which is, let me guess, our phones.
Our entire digital environment. Component 2 is mandatory digital distraction management. This isn't just a good idea anymore. The sources frame it as a survival tactic for focus.
Non-negotiable.
pretty much. Flow requires uninterrupted stretches of attention. Every ping, notification, every quick check of email or social media, it shatters that focus. It actively fragments your attention.
And it takes time to get back into deep focus after an interruption, doesn't it?
Research suggests it takes an average of something like 23 minutes to fully re-engage with a complex task after being interrupted. 23 minutes.
Wow. So those tiny interruptions add up massively over a day.
Hugely. So managing distractions isn't passive, it's an active defense strategy. You have to create distraction-free blocks of time and space, turn off notifications, all non-essential ones, batch your email checking, protect your focus like a fortress.
Okay, so train the attention muscle daily, defend the focus environment fiercely. What's the third piece for getting into flow?
The third component ties it all together, mindfulness tools.
How does mindfulness help with flow specifically?
Mindfulness practices like meditation, body scans, mindful walking, they train you to do something crucial. Observe your thoughts and feelings without automatically getting hooked by them, without judgment.
You notice the thought, but you don't have to follow it down the rabbit hole.
Exactly. This is important because it reduces the activity of something called the default mode network, or DMN, in the brain.
The DMN.
Yeah, that's the brain network that's active when you're mind wandering, ruminating about the past, worrying about the future, thinking about yourself. It's basically the internal chatterbox.
And high chatterbox activity is the enemy of flow.
Precisely. Flow requires being fully present in the task, not lost in your head. So mindfulness strengthens your ability to quiet that DMN, to just be with the task at hand. It makes it much easier for your brain to slip into that focused, effortless flow state when you engage with something challenging and meaningful.
So these tools, focus exercises, distraction defense, mindfulness, they're essentially optimizing the neural wiring needed for peak performance.
That's the idea. You're creating the internal conditions for flow to arise more consistently. Hashtag 2.2, turning setbacks into stepping stones.
Right, but let's be realistic. Even with peak focus, things go wrong.
Right.
Setbacks happen. Failure is part of the game.
Absolutely inevitable.
Okay.
And Chapter 5 tackles this directly. It gives us that crucial reframe we touched on earlier.
Failure isn't the end of the road.
No. It's essential data. It's information you need for improvement. The sources frame it almost like high-octane fuel, not a fire you need to put out.
Fuel. Okay, I like that. But how do you use it as fuel? The default reaction to a mistake or a failure is usually, well, negative.
It's usually emotional paralysis, right? Shame, frustration, wanting to give up, blame someone else.
Yeah, pretty much.
The successful response, the one that actually uses failure as fuel, requires doing two things almost simultaneously, according to the sources.
Which are?
First, you have to extract the lessons immediately, analytically. Second, you have to maintain emotional strength while you're doing it.
Okay, wait. That sounds really hard. If I've just messed up big time, lost a client, bombed a presentation, how can I be analytical when I'm still feeling awful?
It comes back to having a pre-planned process. You need to institutionalize a kind of structured after-action review or post-mortem that forces that separation between the outcome and your identity.
So when a setback hits, you don't just wallow.
No. The first step is a sort of mandatory analytical pause. You step back, maybe even literally take a break, and then you approach it with objective language. You don't ask, why am I so useless?
What do you ask?
You ask, okay, what specific actions or assumptions led to this specific outcome? What were the inputs? Where did the process break down?
This sounds a bit like that response delay strategy we're going to talk about later, but applied to failure.
It's very similar. You create space, you engage in root cause analysis, maybe use something structured like the 5 whys method to dig past the surface symptom to the actual underlying flaw in the strategy or execution.
The key is analyzing the process, not beating yourself up.
Exactly. The lesson extraction part is pure data collection and the emotional strength. That comes from the work you did back in Section 1, building that identity that isn't tied to momentary results, but to your commitment to growth and learning.
Because your identity is, I'm someone who learns from setbacks, not I'm someone who failed.
Precisely. And the source material is packed with examples of this, right? Famous inventors, athletes, leaders.
Yeah, people who seem to thrive on setbacks almost.
It's often the defining trait. They didn't just tolerate failure. They seem to actively use it. You mentioned Edison earlier.
Finding 10,000 ways not to make a light bulb.
Right. Each failure wasn't a reason to quit. It was critical data. It eliminated one possibility, bringing him closer to the solution. When you truly view setbacks as fuel,
You bounce back faster.
exponentially faster. Because the analysis happens quicker, the emotional drag is minimized, and the learning curve becomes incredibly steep. Failure teaches you what doesn't work, which is often the fastest way to figure out what does.
It illuminates the path forward by showing you the dead ends.
Beautifully put, it makes success almost inevitable if you just keep learning and adjusting.
Okay, so we've reprogrammed, we've learned to focus, we know how to handle setbacks. Now we get into making it last. Sustainability.
Exactly. It's one thing to have a great day or a great week. It's another thing entirely to maintain that winning mindset year after year.
And Chapter 6 really hammers home this core idea. Success isn't usually that one big, dramatic breakthrough moment.
No, much more often it's the result of relentless consistency. It's built brick by brick through small, daily actions, day after day.
Like building muscle. You don't get strong by going to the gym once.
Perfect analogy.
Yeah.
Mental conditioning needs the same frequency as physical training. You don't just accidentally become mentally tough. You get tough by showing up every single day.
So how do we build that consistency? What are the components?
The sources emphasize two key things. First, understanding and leveraging the power of consistent habits.
The small stuff.
The tiny, often unglamorous micro actions that you perform daily. They seem insignificant in the moment, but they compound over time into huge results.
It's like a compounding interest of self-discipline, isn't it? That 1% improvement every day. It adds up incredibly fast.
It really does. We often chase the big, sexy breakthrough, but the sources insist the real wins, the sustainable ones, happen in these seemingly mundane daily habits.
Like what kind of habits?
Could be the habit of doing that 5-minute focus exercise we talked about. The habit of writing down one thing you're grateful for. The habit of tackling your most important task first thing before checking email.
These small wins build confidence too, right?
They do. Every time you perform one of these small, disciplined actions, especially when you don't feel like it, you're casting a vote for the identity of someone who follows through, someone who is reliable.
And where's the best place to start embedding these habits?
Right at the beginning of the day, which leads to the second component, establishing structured morning routines.
The power hour.
Yeah.
Or even the power 15 minutes.
Absolutely. That first hour arguably sets the tone for the entire day. It determines whether you're in control or if you're immediately reacting.
If you grab your phone first thing, check notifications, scan headlines.
You've already lost. You've instantly handed over control of your attention, your emotional state, your priorities to whatever the digital world throws at you.
So the structured routine is like building walls around that crucial first part of the day.
Exactly. A fortress for your focus. And that routine must include elements dedicated purely to internal control and mental conditioning. Maybe it's meditation, maybe journaling, maybe that focus exercise, maybe reviewing your goals. Something intentional.
Ensuring the very first thing you do is an act of self-mastery, not reaction.
That's the goal.
So how do these things, consistent micro-habits, structured mornings, how do they ultimately build that robust mental toughness we're aiming for?
They create momentum, and crucially, they build self-trust. Mental toughness isn't just about handling one huge crisis well. It's more about the underlying ability to execute consistently, day in, day out, even when motivation wavers, even when you're tired, even when things aren't going perfectly.
You trust yourself to show up.
You do, because you have proof. Every small, disciplined action is evidence you provide to yourself that you are capable and reliable. When you stack these actions, day after day, they form this incredibly strong internal structure of self-control.
So when minor setbacks or distractions hit, they don't derail you completely.
Exactly. The structure holds. You're essentially training your default response to be discipline, not mood or impulse. Hashtag tag 3.2, emotional mastery and clarity.
Okay, discipline is crucial. But then Chapter 7 hits us with a really important and maybe slightly scary warning.
Yeah, it's stark, isn't it?
It is. It says, basically, when your emotions take the driver's seat, logic goes right out the window. It completely disappears.
We've all been there. Said something we regretted in anger, made a panicked decision out of fear.
Definitely. So if we want that consistent momentum, if we want to perform under pressure, we have to get a handle on our emotions. We need emotional mastery.
It's non-negotiable for high performance, especially in unpredictable situations. And this mastery rests on two main pillars, according to the sources.
Go for one.
Emotional intelligence, or EQ. This is about more than just knowing you're angry or happy. It's the ability to accurately recognize and understand the nuances of your own emotions as they arise. And just as importantly, to perceive and understand the emotions driving other people's behavior.
Self-awareness plus social awareness.
Exactly. And pillar 2 naturally follows. Self-control. This is the ability to manage your reactions to those emotions, to regulate your behavior, even when you're feeling intense anger, fear, or frustration, to stop that destructive impulse from taking over.
So you feel the emotion, but it doesn't dictate your action.
Precisely. The goal, especially when things get chaotic, a crisis hits, a negotiation gets heated, unexpected bad news arrives, is always to act from a place of clarity and purpose, not from raw, unmanaged emotion.
Okay, so how do we do that in the heat of the moment? When the adrenaline is pumping, how do we maintain that composure?
We need practical tools. Think of them as circuit breakers between the emotional trigger and our response. The sources detail several techniques. The first, and maybe the fastest acting, is using breathing strategies.
Just breathing. Seems too simple.
It sounds simple, but it's incredibly powerful physiologically. Specific types of breathing, particularly slow, deep, diaphragmatic breathing, like box breathing.
What's box breathing?
It's simple. Inhale slowly for a count of 4, hold your breath for 4, exhale slowly for 4, and hold empty for 4. Repeat. That pattern directly stimulates the vagus nerve.
And what does the vagus nerve do?
It sends a signal straight to your brain that says, essentially, you are safe. Stand down from high alert. It interrupts the amygdala's hijack, that primitive fear response, and helps bring your rational brain, the prefrontal cortex, back online.
Like hitting a physiological reset button.
Okay.
What else?
Second tool, reframing techniques applied instantly in the moment. We talked about reframing failure, but you can reframe anything.
So if a crisis hits, say a key team member quits unexpectedly right before a deadline, the emotional label is
Herrick, disaster, we're doomed.
Okay. How do you reframe that on the spot?
The reframe shifts the language and the focus. Maybe, okay, this is a significant challenge. It requires an immediate reassessment of resources and priorities. What's the most critical next step? See the difference.
Yeah. One is panic, the other is problem solving. It changes the mental mode.
Instantly, from avoidance to action. Okay, and the third technique seems almost ridiculously simple, but the sources suggest it might be the single most powerful tool for impulse control.
Which is?
Response delay strategies. Simply put, pause.
Just wait.
Intentionally insert a gap. A conscious pause between the stimulus, the trigger event, the insult, the bad news, and your response. Make it a rule. If you feel a strong emotional surge, you will not act, speak, type, or decide anything for, say, the next 60 or 90 seconds, maybe longer.
What happens in that pause?
That short delay is critical. It allows the initial wave of emotional energy from the limbic system, the anger, the fear, to naturally peak and begin to subside. It gives the slower, more rational prefrontal cortex the time it needs to catch up and regain control.
So clarity gets a chance to override the impulse.
Exactly. You turn what could have been a damaging reactive outburst into a considered, strategic, and much more effective response.
It's not about not feeling the emotion.
No, the masters of emotional control still feel everything. They just manage the timing and the expression of their response much better. They use that pause to make sure their action aligns with their long-term goals, not just a fleeting emotional spike. Hashtag 3.3, building unstoppable resilience.
Okay, so discipline, emotional control. Chapter 8 seems to bring a lot of this together under the umbrella of resilience.
Yes, resilience is the ultimate outcome of this internal training in many ways. It's defined in the sources as not just bouncing back from adversity, but bouncing back quickly, adapting effectively, and ideally actually growing stronger because of the challenge.
So it's not just toughness, it's also adaptability and growth. And the sources treat it like a skill we can build, right? Not just something you're born with.
Absolutely a skill. And they provide a sort of checklist of actionable components, daily practices really, that strengthen this mental resilience.
Let's go through them. What's first?
First is perspective. This is about deliberately placing whatever challenge you're facing into a broader context.
Zooming out.
Exactly. Asking, okay, this feels huge right now, but realistically, how much will this matter in a week, a month, a year, 5 years? Or compared to other challenges I've overcome, how big is this really?
That can immediately shrink the perceived size of the problem.
It minimizes the emotional weight, definitely. Okay, second component, gratitude. Now, this can sound a bit like a fluffy wellness trend.
Yeah, keep a gratitude journal.
Right. But the sources frame it as a critical resilience practice with real biochemical effects.
How so?
When you actively practice gratitude, consciously focusing on what you do have, what is working, even small things, it anchors you in a state of sufficiency rather than lack or loss. It combats that scarcity mindset that adversity triggers.
And biochemically?
Practicing gratitude has been shown to boost neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin, the feel-good chemicals. This literally counteracts the stress hormones like cortisol that flood your system during tough times, making your brain more chemically balanced and better able to think clearly and problem solve.
Okay, so it's a chemical intervention too. Interesting. What's next on the resilience checklist?
We circle back to the power of language again, positive self-talk. But this isn't just affirmations, it's the active internal dialogue you engage in during a crisis.
The running commentary in your head when things are going wrong.
Exactly. That voice needs to be coached. The resilient internal voice doesn't say, I'm screwed. It says something like, okay, this is difficult, but I have the skills and resources to handle it. Or, this is painful, but I will get through this and learn from it.
It actively counters the catastrophizing and personalization we talked about earlier.
Correctly. And finally, the ultimate anchor for resilience. Purpose.
Your why.
Your fundamental reason for doing what you do. When challenges feel overwhelming, when the effort feels too much, connecting back to your deeper purpose, why this struggle matters, who it serves, what bigger goal it contributes to that provides the non-negotiable reason to keep going.
It makes the suffering meaningful, in a way.
It does. If you're enduring hardship for something bigger than yourself, resilience becomes much easier to access. And this leads to a really critical distinction the sources make.
Which is?
The difference between merely surviving challenges and actively thriving through them.
Okay, what's the practical difference there? Surviving sounds pretty good when things are tough.
Surviving means you got through it, yes, but maybe you're depleted, scarred, maybe bitter, you just endured. Thriving means you didn't just get through it, you actively used the adversity. You extracted the lessons, you adapted your strategy, you grew, and you came out the other side demonstrably stronger, wiser, or more capable than before.
So you see challenges not as punishments to be endured, but as catalysts for growth.
Exactly. That mindset shift transforms adversity from something that just weighs you down into a resource that actually lifts you up in the long run.
All right, so we built this strong, disciplined, resilient mind. We can handle setbacks, stay focused, manage emotions. Now, Section 4 seems to take us into higher-level strategies, applying this internal mastery in more advanced ways.
That's right. We move from defense and maintenance to offense and expansion, you could say. And Chapter 9 kicks us off with visualization.
Okay, visualization. Is this just thinking positively about the future?
It's much more active and structured than that. It's built on this fundamental principle highlighted in the sources. Everything significant is created twice. First in the mind, then in reality.
The mental blueprint comes first.
Exactly. And visualization isn't just daydreaming. It's using your imagination deliberately to perform detailed, meticulous mental rehearsal.
Like practicing in your head.
Precisely. And the sources point to top performers in many fields, surgeons rehearsing complex operations, musicians playing through a piece mentally, elite athletes running the race in their minds. They all use this.
Why does it work? Is it just building confidence?
Confidence is part of it, but there's neuroscience too. The brain, apparently, often has difficulty distinguishing between a vividly imagined action and performing the action physically.
Right.
Yeah. Studies have shown measurable improvements in muscle strength or coordination just from detailed mental practice. You're essentially pre-paving the neural pathways for success.
Okay, so it's training the brain and nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
How does someone listening actually do this effectively? What does the mental rehearsal look like? Just seeing yourself win.
Seeing the win is part of it, but the sources stress a much more detailed methodology. The key is total sensory immersion. You have to engage all your senses in the imagined scene.
Okay, walk me through that. Let's use the example of a runner visualizing a race.
Right. So you don't just see yourself crossing the finish line first. You need to see the specific colors of the track, the digital numbers on the clock, the faces in the crowd, the position of your competitor.
Okay. Visual detail.
Feel. The exact sensation of your muscles working, the rhythm of your breathing, the feeling of the ground under your feet, maybe the wind on your skin.
Physical sensations. Got it.
Hear. The sound of the crowd, is it roar, a murmur? Hear your own footsteps, your breathing, maybe the announcements over the loudspeaker.
Auditory cues.
Smell taste. maybe the faint smell of the track material, or that metallic taste you get in your mouth during intense exertion, the more senses you involve, the more real it feels to your brain.
So it's like creating a high-definition movie in your mind, starring you. And you mentioned rehearsing difficulties.
Absolutely crucial. You don't just visualize smooth sailing. You mentally rehearse overcoming the challenging parts. That point in the race where fatigue screams at you, dealing with a competitor making a move, pushing through the pain barrier.
Or, in a business context, handling an objection in a sales pitch, navigating a tough question in a presentation.
Exactly. You visualize yourself encountering the obstacle and successfully implementing your strategy to overcome it by simulating it mentally, over and over.
Your brain treats the real event less like a scary unknown.
And more like a familiar sequence. It's already run successfully many times. You've pre-wired your nervous system for the desired response. Performance anxiety drops because, in a way, you've already done it. You've created the victory internally first. Hashtag tag 4.2, winning in relationships and leadership.
Okay, mental rehearsal for individual performance makes sense. But Chapter 10 takes his internal mastery and applies it outwards, doesn't it, to how we interact with others?
Yes, this is essential. The sources argue that truly effective people, true winners in the broadest sense, don't just focus inward. They extend their mindset and skills to uplift and influence others positively, especially in leadership roles.
So how does mastering your own internal state help you deal with, well, the complexity and sometimes irrationality of other people?
Immensely. Once you have a better handle on your own emotional triggers, your own biases, your own internal noise, you're just infinitely better equipped to navigate interactions calmly and effectively. This mastery shows up in leadership in 3 key ways, according to the sources.
Okay, first way.
Through improved communication and empathy. Because you've developed your own emotional intelligence, that EQ we talked about, you're better able to genuinely listen. To hear not just the words someone is saying, but the underlying emotion or need behind them. Even if they're disagreeing strongly or expressing frustration.
You can hear the message without getting defensive yourself.
Exactly. That self-control means you can respond thoughtfully, aiming for understanding, rather than just reacting emotionally. Communication becomes much clearer, less loaded with baggage. Okay, second manifestation.
Yes.
Positive influence. Think about it. A leader who stays calm, focused, and purposeful, especially when things are chaotic or stressful. That person is naturally reassuring. They become a stabilizing force.
People feel safer, more confident following someone like that.
Absolutely. Your own internal composure radiates outwards and helps regulate the emotions of the team. This isn't about manipulation, it's about providing a stable anchor. And that kind of influence is built on the trust you earn through your consistent, controlled behavior over time.
Makes sense. And the third way this internal mastery helps in leadership.
Handling the inevitable friction. The ability to resolve conflict gracefully.
Which is a huge part of leadership and life.
Huge. Conflict is unavoidable when passionate people work together. The leader who hasn't mastered their own emotions, they tend to react defensively, maybe attack the person, focus on winning the argument, proving they're right.
Escalates things quickly.
Usually. But the self-mastered leader, having practiced that response delay, they can pause. They approach the conflict not as a personal battle, but as a problem to be solved collaboratively. They focus on finding common ground, on the shared goal, on the strategic outcome, not on ego.
Which de-escalates things and makes people feel safer to speak up.
Great psychological safety, exactly. People are more willing to voice concerns or disagree constructively if they know they won't be attacked for it.
So what's the bigger picture here? What's the ultimate result of applying this winning mindset to how we lead and interact?
It's about creating a fundamentally different kind of environment. The goal is to build a culture, whether in a team, a family, or any group that's characterized by high trust, open communication, and intrinsic motivation.
Where people feel empowered and supported.
Right. Your own self-mastery becomes the foundation for that. It allows for ethical, effective leadership that isn't about command and control, but about inspiring and enabling others to perform at their best too. A leader who manages their own internal world well is far better equipped to navigate the complexities of the external world, especially the world of human relationships. Hashtag tag 4.3, the spiritual dimension of success.
We've covered a lot of practical strategies, logic, neuroscience. But Chapter 11 seems to go a layer deeper. It talks about a spiritual dimension of success.
Yeah, this moves beyond just tactics and performance hacks. It's not necessarily about religion in a specific sense, but about connecting your inner state, your sense of inner peace, with your ability to perform consistently and find meaning in what you do.
So it's addressing the fundamental why behind all this effort.
It's about achieving deep internal alignment. This alignment is presented as the source of sustainable mental energy. Two key elements come into play here. First, the profound importance of meaning and purpose,
which we touched on with resilience.
Right. Purpose acts as the ultimate why. It's the direction for all the daily discipline. If you're just grinding away at tasks without a connection to a larger meaning, even small efforts start to feel like draining chores. Purpose fuels the engine.
And the second element of this internal alignment.
It's ensuring congruence between your actions, your stated goals, and your deeply held core values.
Making sure everything lines up internally.
Yes. Misalignment is like internal friction.
Yeah.
It silently drains your mental energy. If you value integrity, for example, but find yourself constantly cutting ethical corners for short-term gains.
That creates a conflict inside.
A major conflict. Psychologists call it cognitive dissonance. It's stressful, exhausting, and it undermines performance. Achieving alignment where your daily actions genuinely reflect your values and contribute to your purpose removes that friction. Your mental energy can then flow much more freely and powerfully towards your goals.
Okay, so if external rewards, the money, the status, the praise, only give temporary happiness, how do these deeper internal practices create that lasting fulfillment, the kind that keeps you going through tough times?
They tap into intrinsic motivation, which is far more durable than extrinsic motivation. Practices like gratitude, again, meditation, which quiets the ego and connects you to the present, and living a life consciously driven by purpose. They shift your source of validation.
From external results to internal states.
Exactly. Your sense of worth becomes less dependent on the next win, the next compliment, the next market upswing. When your motivation comes from within, from the satisfaction of learning, growing, contributing, living in accordance with your values, then the effort itself becomes rewarding.
So the journey becomes the reward, not just the destination.
That's a great way to put it. This deep sense of fulfillment provides a stable internal reservoir of motivation that doesn't dry up when external circumstances get tough. It's the difference between chasing fleeting achievements and building true, sustainable, internally generated success and well-being.
You stop needing the external world to tell you you're okay. You build that certainty within yourself.
That's the core of it. You insulate your drive from the inevitable ups and downs of external results. Hashtag 4.4, the lifelong practice.
Which brings us perfectly to the final chapter, chapter 12. It really lands the point that this whole process, it's not a project with an end date.
No, definitely not. Winning, in the sense we've been discussing it, mastering your mind isn't a destination you arrive at and then, put your feet up.
Okay, mastered my mind. Done.
Wouldn't that be nice? No, the sources are clear. It's a lifelong practice, a lifestyle of continuous mental training, refinement, and evolution. You never really graduate from working on your self-mastery.
So this last section is like the long-term maintenance plan.
Exactly. It's the framework for navigating all future challenges, including the ones you can't even imagine yet. The sources highlight 3 characteristics that are essential for maintaining this winning mindset over the long haul, over decades.
Okay, characteristic number 1.
Maintaining growth. This means truly embracing a growth mindset. Believing your abilities can be developed through dedication and hard work. It requires a commitment to lifelong learning, constantly seeking new information, developing new skills.
Because if you think your talent or intelligence is fixed,
you play it safe. You avoid challenges where you might fail or look bad because that would feel like a verdict on your fixed ability. A commitment to growth is the antidote to stagnation and complacency.
And complacency is dangerous for performance.
Fatal, eventually. The moment you think you know it all or that you've arrived, your mental edge starts to dull. Okay, second characteristic for the long haul, adaptability. The world changes, constantly, faster than ever. The strategies, tools, even the mindsets that brought you success last year might be ineffective or even detrimental this year.
So you have to be willing to change course, even if it's uncomfortable.
You have to be mentally flexible, willing to question your own assumptions, willing to abandon comfortable routines or cherished beliefs if the evidence shows they're no longer serving you. And often, you need to adapt before the situation forces you to, before it becomes a crisis.
That requires a lot of self-awareness and honesty. Being willing to admit something you built isn't working anymore.
It does. And that leads directly to the third essential characteristic, perhaps the most crucial for sustained success, especially at high levels, humility.
Humility. That sometimes gets mistaken for weakness, doesn't it? How does it fit with a winning mindset?
It's not weakness, it's strength under control. In this context, humility means recognizing that no matter how successful you've been, you are not immune to mistakes, biases, or failure. It's the understanding that there's always more to learn, always room for improvement. It's the shield against arrogance.
And arrogance often comes right before a fall.
Almost invariably. Humility keeps you grounded, keeps you learning, keeps you listening.
So how does a successful person actively practice humility? It seems like it could clash with the confidence needed to lead.
They're complementary, not contradictory. Humility in practice means things like actively seeking out different perspectives, especially dissenting opinions, genuinely welcoming constructive criticism even when it stings, being willing to say, I don't know, or I was wrong, listening seriously to people at all levels of an organization.
Recognizing that good ideas can come from anywhere, not just the top.
Precisely. It's confidence in your ability to learn and adapt, coupled with the awareness that you don't have all the answers right now. This constant openness to learning and correction is what ensures the mental fortress we've been talking about doesn't become rigid and brittle, but stays strong and flexible for the entire journey.
So this chapter really seals it. The internal work is never finished. It's the ongoing process that allows you to handle whatever comes next.
It's the durable operating system for a successful and fulfilling life. The foundation is laid, the tools are there, but the practice, that's lifelong. It's about constant refinement of this powerful, resilient, and adaptable mind. #outro.
Wow. That was a truly comprehensive deep dive, wasn't it?
Yeah.
We've really journeyed through the entire inner landscape of success.
We covered a lot of ground.
We absolutely did. We started right at the beginning, diagnosing those internal enemies. The fear, the doubt, the limiting beliefs that hold us back.
By identifying the real battlefield.
Exactly. And then we moved systematically through the practical tools for reprogramming that inner voice, for building focus, achieving flow, and maybe most importantly, learning how to reframe failure, not as an end, but as essential fuel for growth.
Building that core resilience day by day through discipline and emotional control.
And our journey finished with those higher level strategies, using visualization to create success first in the mind, applying our internal mastery to lead and connect with others more effectively.
And finding that deeper spiritual alignment, that sense of purpose, which provides the lasting intrinsic motivation.
So if there's one critical takeaway from all of this,
I think it has to be this. The ultimate measure of victory isn't really the external prize, the trophy, the bank balance. It's the level of mastery you achieve over your own mind, that internal mastery. That's the real superpower.
and the ultimate goal isn't just to have that power for yourself.
No, the ultimate goal is to use that mastery, that clarity, that resilience to make a meaningful, positive difference in the world around you, to contribute something of value.
Okay, so as you, our listener, start thinking about how to integrate these 4 phases of mental development into your own life, your own daily practice. Here's a final thought, a provocative question to perhaps carry with you as you begin or continue your mental training today.
Let's hear it.
If we accept that sustained success is truly built day by day through those small, consistent, disciplined actions and tiny mental victories, then how does consciously defining a clear, compelling, deeply meaningful purpose for yourself today? How does that fundamentally change the value, the impact, and the intentional direction of every single one of tomorrow's smallest mental wins?
Connecting the micro actions to the macro meaning.
Exactly. Think about that deep alignment, that connection between the daily grind and the ultimate why, and consider the unstoppable power that kind of clarity might generate.